will be submitted to everybody. So you have saved the agony of the slides. But yes, it's a tall order standing between the final session and the break. But let me take you through a couple of things. Indra Nooyi, the PepsiCo chief, was in India recently. I found it quite interesting the way she summed it up. So I'll just read it out to you. She said that India has moved on from the must invest to a must deal with country. So I'll elaborate that further. Must invest means it's a destination and GDP is growing. Must deal with means that there are infrastructure issues, the taxation policy is not clear or transparent. So people are saying, do I have to deal with India? This is what she said. So unfortunately, from a must invest to a must deal is not a good situation. Having said that, let me take you through some other, just going through the economic scenarios and reality. So this made some interesting reading. It's a bit different from what all speakers throughout the day have spoken, so I thought make it much more enriching. This is called the Flotilla Set Out. So I'm reading it out, it's a small paragraph. In July 2012, a group led by Myra within the Planning Commission published 3 flotillas scenarios. First was muddling along, which is called insufficient action. Second is falling apart, which is called the policy log jam. And the third was the flotilla advances, which is a strong inclusive growth. In each scenario, a large collection of ships tries to move ahead purposefully, led by a comrade, which is the elected prime minister. We seem to squarely fit the policy logjam scenario, where the document says a flotilla of ships is trying to sail together, but ships keep colliding with each other. The ships do not communicate enough. Consequently, ships often sail off in different directions. The flagship is spending too much time just getting the flotilla back together, leaving little time for coordinated future directions. Having said that, a bit of a grim, but let's come back. I tried to assess what could be the risk areas, or where is it that we are going wrong. So there are around 8 risk areas. So let me again try to take you through and with some suggestions. It's not that only problems are there, there are solutions for each problems. The first one, of course, is a leadership crisis. So what's it? It's an absence of coherent, coordinated, determined behavior at the top. So what's the solution? Change of guard in key roles, major ruling party leaders backing to tough policy reform measures, which is in any case happening. Only thing is that the pace that you require should be much more accelerated. Let's come down to the second one, high fiscal deficit. So 200% rise in subsidies since 2007-2008. So what's it that we need to do? Speed up, like for example, Aadhaar pilots, use study results to shift to direct transfers of subsidies across India. Let's move on to the third one. High current account deficit, as all of you have already spoken. Likely at 4% of GDP in the last fiscal year. So the solution as of now required is controlling the fiscal deficit with curtailed current account deficit. The fourth one is, of course, the high inflation which each one of us is facing, including the bulb which reached almost 100 rupees and which started possibly chefs coming out with much more newer recipes of, how could we prepare various curries without bulb. So 7.23% and ever increasing. And we still need some kind of a comfort level. So what is it? Ease supply constraints by removing the APMC Act and opening up the retail sector for FDI. Rupee depreciation, 20% drop in rupee against dollar since 2011, Of course, it reached almost a magic figure against a dollar, against a pound also of 100. And overseas bonds are an option. Clear FDI decisions required quickly. Stalled reforms, we need much more quick, bold reforms which can turn the sentiments. As right now, my predecessor, she said, many stock market initiatives and others being taken. One of the speakers before this spoke about GST, a lot of implementation coming around. So these are some of the measures. Drop in investments. What we need to quickly move over and switch from subsidy to investment. We are opening up various sectors, bringing competitiveness, allow everybody to regulate in a market environment. And finally, not the least, the legal framework, which is the topic of our discussion also today. We need to relook at our archaic laws, develop basic framework in today's environment. That's the need of the hour. And having taken this, maybe I'll just take you through two more important things. And one was that Governor of RBI has recently come out with his 5 policy reforms, which I must just reiterate here. He says strengthening monetary policy tools in a globalized world environment. And luckily, since he comes from a globalized world environment, I'm sure that he means business, what he speaks. Reforming the banking sector. New banking licenses and national treatment to foreign banks on the agenda. Create depth in the financial market by allowing new players and introducing new instruments. Providing access to finance to SMEs and the unorganized sector and support financial inclusions. Finally, dealing with corporate disasters or distress by speeding up the debt recovery tribunal and asset reconstruction firms. Having said all this, very recently on this last Friday, our finance minister, when he was making a pitch for India as a safe investment hub, I'll conclude with these 6 points which he thought would be the real barometer for growth. So according to him, the first why one should invest in India is its young demographic. He says a little more than 1/2 of the people of India are below the age of 25 years, which is quite true. And that's where, our future is in the coming years. And at least I have the guarantee that by the time I would be going up, I would see a better India, definitely. Second is the integration of the Indian economy with the world economy. Third is the increasing capable financial system, a new Indian financial code that will replace the 50 existing laws concerning finance, a new Companies Act, and a statute-mandated defined contribution pension system. The fourth, he says, international clout of Indian firms in steel, oil and gas, mining, power, information technology and hospitality. The fifth, the famed consumption-led growth story, household final consumption, 57% of the GDP, and finally the maturity of our democracy and adherence to a model governed by the rule of law. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing. I hope you have a wonderful evening with all of us. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank our audience for their time and attention. I don't want to finish without at least offering an opportunity for a question or two, but before I do, the call for change in law reminds me of an author who wrote at the end of the 19th century. He was called G.K. Chesterton, and he was famous for his paradoxes. And he said, man is never so free as when he is governed by just law. And the paradox, of course, is governed and freedom. And with that, I would particularly like to hear from our young law students if they have a question, but of course anybody who has a question, please. Yes.
Yeah, but still carry.
Here's the mic.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here since post-afternoon rather.
Can you speak more into the microphone? I don't know that we can hear you.
Yeah. I'm here since post-afternoon, and I'm Lukman. I'm doing law from Jamia. It's my final year. And I've heard about I mean, this panel, I started with the rule of law, that's yours, that you spoke about. And then I've heard the other speakers also. And I have to make this conclusion that I'm seeing the private sector more inclined towards the reforms in the governmental functioning, pertaining to the regulations of agencies and how they can't, how they don't communicate with each other, and how that has a consequent ill effect on business as a whole, and thus India not being a very good investment opportunity for FDIs or joint ventures, as it would have had if the government would have been a better and efficient entity, as a whole. I'm a young lawyer, all right? Not a lawyer right now, but
Can we
gonna
get
be
to
one.
a question?
Yeah, I'm coming to it. This was the everything, So my question is simple, and it is this: the way I see India, with 1.25 billion people, and any less laws, which if tries to, which if I reduce the legal regulations towards a good business environment, could be detrimental to Indian polity in reality or in outcomes at a macro level. So I fear that if you don't have more regulations, something might go wrong somewhere, and that could have a disastrous effect to the Indian nation, in the international community also, or probably to the Indian image or to the Indian people at large. That is what Ms. Agarwal talked about, the public welfare and the business thing. So my question pertains to the last speaker, sir, that how do you think that these two could be, these two interests could be, conflicting interests could be paralyzed, solved by young people like us? What could we do on our little micro level so that it could have a big outcome? Because apparently we are India's future, so we should start right now. Thank you.
If I understood your question correctly, there are two aspects to it. One is there is already a rule of law available, but it has its own challenges. How do you go about it? Am I right in understanding your question?
Oh, yes.
Okay, fair enough. A rule of law is meant to be practiced. There will be obstacles and challenges, but it's not that we have to throw out all. There are many examples in my own life, in the 30 years of my corporate existence. I have found so many numerous, I can't even now, articulate them, how many challenges we have had to face. But then there is always a way of going about it, and even if you have to maybe, dealing with the government or with the policy makers, you have to make them understand and take it forward. But again, as I said, in the right manner, as they call it, the shareholders' value. Bottom line is the shareholders' value. Just to take it in that text, what I'm talking, the shareholders' value has to be increased. If you follow the rule of the law, you yourself will get the